and we are live for a round two with Vlad Severa. Vlad and I have been on a podcast 2 years ago. It was a good one, I remember for sure. Vlad is about longevity. He has an edtech as well, and it's about AI. So him and I share a huge overlap when it comes to this. So founder mainly nowadays at Knowdroids.ai. Know like knowledge, founder at LearnerOn.net, and co-founder and partner at Longevity Tech Fund. So that was a fun one to talk about. This podcast is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start and monetize your own podcast through YouTube AdSense, through sponsors paying you and generating leads off a podcast, talking to your ICP, you can go to podfire.com. You have a free Kindle ebook to download and a masterclass for you. Vlad, I am glad to have you on for round two again. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, first, Charles, hi, and thanks for inviting me again after the first experience, so that's appreciated. And my main occupations today are still similar to what they have been 2 years ago, being that longevity and being longevity investor and partner with Longevity Tech Fund. LearnerOn as a learning experience platform and data science-based learning platform is still alive, so that's good news as well. But since the summer of 2023, I became co-founder in the business you mentioned as well, Knowdroids.ai, and that's nowadays my main occupation. Actually, that's a company which is designing and producing and delivering AI autonomous agents. And when we started with them in the summer of 2023, they barely existed. That was a new notion. But in the Christmas of 2024, probably you, as everyone else, was witnessing the explosion of the topic in media, LinkedIn, Twitter, full of agents, as they start to seem to be really the AI killer application for businesses going forward. So, well, that's my today's job, actually.
So what changed in the 2 years that have passed since we talked, and what have you personally accomplished in those 2 years?
Well, I got a lot of experiences and a lot of learning points, good or bad ones, but all of them probably equipped me to be more ready and more resilient. So as an example of the learning points I got when I founded LearnerOn, that was some 5 years ago, I was then solo founder. And when I was about to found Knowdroids.ai, immediately I knew that I do not want to be lonely in that adventure. So we are 3 co-founders there. So that's one of the learnings, that when you want to start something big and something intensive, being alone is a little bit of a suffering. So having trusted partners and trusted friends of yours, that's a good starting point. And besides that, the world over the past 2 years changed dramatically, Then there was the COVID period. Now we are finally, unfortunately, out of that. So everything is freer and people can again enjoy the life a bit more than then. And also 2 years ago, the AI was probably full of machine learning and a little bit of language models and natural language processing, while since then, there was the Cambrian explosion, I call it, of the proliferation of generative AI, and more recently about the AI agents. So again, I learned a lot. I was well educated in machine learning and in the foundations of AI, but still I learned enormous things which I was not prepared for 2 years ago. So that was great advancement.
Right. I think Bryan Johnson has exploded in the last 2 years in the longevity field. How did that affect your investment and your thesis?
Yeah. In the longevity field, that's as probably your listeners and audience will know, that's about biotech and specific subsector of biotech. And biotech is having the fortunate circumstance that in biology, that's a science where the frontier is moving every day. So I'm comparing that to my other favorite discipline in science, which is physics. In physics, typically the Nobel Prize is awarded for an investigation of a phenomenon which started to be investigated 70 or 80 years ago. So there is a long tail until when you can receive the Nobel Prize in physics. Not this year, because in this year, last year, Nobel Prizes in physics were actually awarded even for work in AI, as you probably know. But in biology, Nobel Prizes are being awarded for discoveries which did happen a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. That's a young science. Thanks to the gene mapping from the year 2000 that opened the gate of enormous discoveries. And longevity is actually a sub-subject of biology and biotech. So longevity is enjoying the same explosion of inventions and explosion of discoveries. So every day there is something new in longevity. Probably the humankind is still only opening the can of the unknown in longevity, because in biology everything is related to everything else. Organisms are highly networked and deeply networked beings, so small influence can then have a big effect on the entire organism. So we are learning a lot, but learning at enormous pace. So longevity and biology is actually harvesting the dividend of the discoveries being made in enormous pace. That's a great field to be in. And Longevity Tech Fund, when we spoke last time, there was still open the Longevity Tech Fund #1 that has closed in the meantime, both for investors and for the investees. So now that's maturing towards the exits. And there has been opened Longevity Tech Fund #2, which is now already again closed for investors, but still open to investees. So we moved also a little bit in the investing space into longevity.
Right. Yeah, other than Nobel Prize and all of that, I feel it's so important, but I think the greatest revolution is Bryan Johnson himself. Why? Because he is popularizing the biohacker movement. Again, it had various cold and hot periods, the self-quantified and biohacker movement. But I think he's popularizing that. And that means that if a lot of humans are testing on themselves, they can potentially share their results, right? That data, and then we can make test and clinical trials way more efficient. I believe the way it's done is so inefficient, right? And that's why the breakthroughs are so slow nowadays. Obviously, he's on the optimizing side of things and not the curing disease side of things. But I think that revolution and having people more conscious of their health and stop outsourcing their health to public systems and it being a priority and a private thing, I think this is one of the greatest revolutions of our time, and I think it's headed by Bryan Johnson.
First, I agree. Johnson is a very, very visible figure, and he's sharing with the world what he's finding. And he's spending a lot of money, by the way, as well on the findings, but sharing for free with the rest of the world. And sharing even protocols which are much less expensive than those protocols which he's investigating himself. So that's the really good proliferation of the practical knowledge. And second, you're right that the world of medicine is full of curing diseases, but disease happens when that's too late. The disease should be prevented from happening. And there is little emphasis in the public space on the prevention and a lot of the emphasis on curing the actual disease. And this disbalance should be turned around in time for many reasons, because the disbalance is really unhealthy. Second, the public budgets are also suffering from the catching the disease when it appears and not preventing that from happening, which very often can be much cheaper. So I think that the balance will change over time. And not going into politics, but the change of the political leadership in the US is also suggesting that something will happen in the balance of prevention versus curing the disease. So I think that big things will be seen not only in the medical research, but also in the way how the medicine is being financed and in the public healthcare system. So a lot of things will come.
Right. And on the AI front, I guess 2025 is the year of AI agents. Do you agree with that? And what do you think will happen that will be magical for most entrepreneurs this year? Is it the fact that I will be able to order ChatGPT to get me on 10 entrepreneurship podcasts and the agent will go and fill out the form itself? Will that happen this year?
Yeah, some of these things will be happening this year already, but properly or what is an AI agent? That's a software application where the large language model is serving the role of a brain or operating system, is being equipped with interfaces, access to data, various tools, knowledge in the form of knowledge bases, etc., etc. And this artificial being can be made arbitrarily flexible because you can link the agents into multi-agentic solutions. And they can do miracles already today, but they are still having a couple of major limitations. An example is that the interconnectedness of the multi-agents is not perfect. They cannot share information really smoothly, and they barely can share memories, etc. So these things need to be improved first. And second, imagine the agent being represented, the brain system by the LLM, is having very narrow perspective on reality, very narrow perception. You only communicate via chat with the agent. The chat may have some access to some knowledge base, may have access to internet, but a human can feel with many senses, in real time. Agents do not have this access to the real-time perception yet, etc., etc. So I think that there will be still a lot of developments that the early agentic systems, which we are seeing today, will be enormously useful on and by themselves, but still the development will be pretty vast. And at the end, the agent should satisfy, at least in my mind, three major criteria. Should be fit for purpose. You want the agent to perform something practical, so the agent should be capable of doing that. Second, the agent should be efficient. But not all of us, the agentic systems, are being cheap, quick, and accurate at the same time. So a lot of improvements on the efficiency will be taking place as well. And third criterion for an agent, in my mind, is being Fristonian. Fristonian means learning by its own experience and its own observations and actions vis-a-vis the real world. And the Fristonian part of the agent is still vastly non-existing. So the Fristonian element needs to take place as well. So there will be still long development curve, but I think that in 2025, we will see many agentic implementations. But my sense is that I call it again, Cambrian moment, Cambrian explosion of the agentic applications will come a little later, maybe in 2026, when a number of these hurdles will be still alleviated and the agentic systems will become better and better over time. But 2025, definitely steep growing curve. 2026, I think that will be the proper explosion.
Right. And who will take advantage of that? Is it the company paying the most AI agents, the company with the most budget, with the most technical know-how on how to connect this agent with that agent? Who will make it big in this AI agent revolution?
At the moment, in the enterprise space or in the corporate space, there are agentic pioneers. So they are pioneering early solutions and trying to orchestrate the multi-agentic solutions and watching the agents, because using agents is also to some extent risky. You need to observe them, do not allow them to do things which could be harmful to the organization. So many systems need to wrap around the agents still. And then over time, I think that companies are having many legacy data systems and also many legacy IT systems, which you either can gradually replace, but many of these systems are efficient and working well. So the alternative way is to expose these systems to the agentic counterparts, As a human is interacting with an IT application, so the agent can also interact with the IT application. But the IT application needs to be open to the interaction and open in a transparent and automatable way. And there is a long way to go to adjust the legacy databases and legacy IT systems to make them available for the agentic elaborations. So I guess that a little bit of a transformation within the company systems will take place first before the agents really will be able to march in sort of a mass sense. So that still will take some time and some preparations. And therefore, I guess that 2026 will be more the time for the explosion, and 2025 still preparatory, steeply upward, but still preparatory period for the agentic solutions.
And how much do you charge for these AI agents, and who's your ideal customer persona?
Well, at the moment, we charge actually the development cost plus some margin. And at the end, you also apply some maintenance license as with the classical software applications, but as at the moment. And many of the agents of the present time are tailor-made for certain client and certain purpose. At the end, more likely is that the pricing and charging will be based on the value which you deliver. given the acceleration of an action of a company, you can bring, reduction of costs, increase of revenues, if your agents on the sales side will bring more of the revenues to your customer. So the value-based billing, that's probably the end game. And we are somewhere on the way from the traditional billing of software to the value-based billing at the very end.
Do you still run LearnerOn, or is most of your time spent on the Droid business now?
Well, LearnerOn is technology-wise mature platform, and still there is a way how to improve it, and we are improving that. But in terms of development, the bulk of the work has been done. So for LearnerOn now, that's more about being customer friendly and being business developed than technology developed. So my technology mind is more focused on Knowdroids.ai. So there I am spending probably more of my mental capacity. And the company is young, so needs to be taken care of. So my focus, my energy, my time is more tied to Knowdroids at the moment.
So
And
what are your goals for this year? What are your moonshots?
Yeah, well, the moonshot for Knowdroids is to proceed with our internal platform, which will automate the production of the agents or droids to a point when that will be really semi-automated. A human input at the beginning will be in the form of sort of business task, and the output at the end should be container with the agent ready-made or a software as a service deployment of the ready-made agent. And we are somewhere on the way towards this end, but there is still a journey. And I guess that we will be in good condition to issue something like first version of our platform sometime around the mid of the year. So that's probably the biggest goal, technology-wise, for Knowdroids. Business-wise, we need to establish lots of partnerships and lots of business relationships, and a lot of business development needs to happen at Knowdroids still. So, these two things probably will be the main occupations for me mentally, physically in the coming 12 months.
I've read on your LinkedIn about the pyramid of knowledge. Is that how AGI is going to be built, by filtering through the best knowledge and ultimately the truth? And if so, how do we do that?
Yeah. The concept is called pyramid of wisdom, and it's mentally that's the simple model that at the bottom of the pyramid you're having the raw data or raw information. In the middle layer you're having knowledge. In informatics, the knowledge is actually defined as the relationships between data. That's the knowledge which can be machine learned. And at the top of the pyramid is wisdom, can be represented by the higher cognitive abilities, like argue by analogies, for example. This is an example of sort of wisdom which can be somehow defined and classified. And some people argue that the pyramid doesn't have any top, that you can always go at some higher layer in the pyramid, because whatever we call wisdom, you can still argue by higher level analogies and go up and up and up. And up until now, machine learning probably was bringing us from the layer of data to the layer of knowledge. Now these generative AI and agentic applications are starting from the knowledge. They can directly digest human language or images or videos or audios and do something with that. So that's pushing actually the machines upwards in the pyramid of wisdom. And still humans occupy the top, and probably always will, because as I said, always there will be a higher up where to go in terms of experiences, values, purposes, moral judgments, etc., which never will be proper to machines, but always will be in the position of humans. So I think that the whole pyramid will climb upwards, that the machines are climbing up and humans should as well. And probably machines can liberate us from the mundane data jobs, or maybe not so mundane, but still to be improved knowledge jobs, and will push us to really apply our judgments in the wisdom area, which should be human proper. And maybe we even will need to get accustomed to that. We are not actually used to apply wisdom every day. We are mechanically doing many things. And it may be exhausting to apply wisdom in many occasions, but we will have to learn it. So I think that both machines and humans are having lots of things to learn and lots of things to improve.
Yeah, well, I think most analogies are really bad at conveying wisdom and knowledge. I think they're very much shooting from the hip and very imprecise way of communicating something quick with imagery in people's mind that they know about. Isn't mathematic the ultimate way to communicate this reality, or is it more a mix of many sciences?
Yeah, mathematics tries to define and bring axioms actually into the language. At the end, mathematics is a language how to describe things and how to name them, and how to define and prove or disprove relationships between various constructs in mathematics. And mathematics is having a separate branch which is called category theory. And this category theory is actually close relative to the pyramid of wisdom. Actually, the higher up layers of wisdom can be sort of translated into higher categories in mathematics, or there is a loose relationship between them. So mathematics is trying, but mathematics doesn't handle human notions. Mathematics knows nothing about biological beings and about planets and about nature. Mathematics is dealing with idealized objects. So all of us, there will be language and there will be meaning and there will be wisdom, which is going beyond mathematics. By the way, mathematics knows nothing about morality or about good or bad things. So there is a vast space beyond mathematics. And I suspect that a lot of other scientific or non-scientific, pieces of knowledge and wisdom will always play a big role in human life, and mathematics will not cover it all, ever.
But we need maths in like other sciences, right? Like to describe that this moral decision has a 67% chance of being good in that scenario.
Yeah. Well, some sciences can or are attempting to bring some mathematically scientific meaning actually to even moral things. We can argue, for example, that good things are those which are supporting evolution, which are supporting the fitness of kind of species. Possibly. So maybe we will find a way how to translate things like good or positive behavior or friendship or happiness into a little bit mathematicized notions. Yeah, possibly, but fully, I don't think we will manage. But partially, possibly. By the way, this notion of Fristonian agents, it's actually not a notion which occupies the world of AI. It's more occupying the world of living beings, and that's a notion which can somehow or tries to explain how animals and plants are maintaining their integrity and how they can survive and improve in the otherwise quite hostile world and environment. So I think that the Fristonian notions can maybe even aspire one day to get us closer to sort of more exact understanding of what is good and what is moral. But fully getting us there, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I think as humans would still have to define the algorithm, right? And I think the main prevalent algorithm nowadays is utilitarian, right? The quantity of people that it does good to and the quantity of good it does inside each of them is equal to the maximum result and what we should aim for, I guess. But yes, it's I think it's way more complex than that. Thinking about it, when Chat GPT or OpenAI will have their own agents, probably not branded as Chat GPT, of course. But let's say that OpenAI would have their own agents. What would be the underlying algorithm behind each? It's like the probability of us being in legal trouble for going on that website, the probability of us making that person angry from submitting the form. What would be the algorithm of sending an agent somewhere and have it perform an action?
Well, difficult to say. I think that at least initially the algorithm will be mimicking the prevailing human behavior, because the language models are actually learning from the corpora of human produced text. So these agents will be learning in a similar way from human behavior or from the prevailing human behavior. Therefore, they will be full of various biases and imperfections, but there will be no better learning materials than the actual examples of human behavior for them. And over time, they may be tuned, so the biases may be sort of erased from their behavior or from their reasoning, etc., etc. Already now, you're seeing the first reasoning models like the O1 or the O3 come in, or in the open space, open source model space, there is the QN model, which is also capable of arguing. And there is some simulated reasoning among otherwise non-reasoning language models. Very interesting developments. All of them draw from language-described human behavior. So that will be the learning material for all of these agents. They, by themselves and on themselves, will know nothing what humans wouldn't have injected into them as the actual examples of human behavior or human text described, matters.
Right. When you project Neuralink from actually deploying, and yeah, could I upload like all the podcasts that I had with my guests onto it and leverage the revolution of brain-computer interfaces that will be upon us hopefully in the next 30 years?
Well, I don't know, but what is the achievement which we can aspire together is, for example, sharing memory. At the moment, how can you share memory? You can only narrate what you recall to someone or write a book and someone can learn it and read it, but otherwise you have visual memory and you have your feelings in your memory and you cannot share it. There is absolutely no way how to share it besides expressing that by human language or expressing it by paintings or movies, but to share it directly, there is no way. And maybe we could find a way how to share it directly. So the fullness and the wholeness of my emotions and even the emotional memories maybe could be somehow transmitted on someone and maybe potentially onto a vast audience with the inventions and prospective inventions ahead of the Neuralink or similar appliances and applications. So maybe there is a horizon which we were not aware of, and we can walk in that direction and get to still, unexpected ends. So maybe these things would be possible.
Yeah, and I think even with AI nowadays, if I want to share a memory of mine, I can prompt GPT and DALL-E to build a form of that memory, right? And talking about that, for example, or loved ones, if they pass away, you can upload all their data into one chat and have them talk just like them, upload their voice on 11 Labs, make their avatars on whatever that company is, Synthesia. So yeah, it's quite amazing that all the value that we've got from the AI revolution, just that field most of us cannot fully grasp the extent of it and test all these softwares all at once, right? So humans are still catching up, which is the challenge in commercializing all of these applications and services. Vlad, where can we find out more about you and your company?
Actually, I'm active on LinkedIn. That's my social network of choice. And Knowdroids is also a company active on LinkedIn. So if you want to get in touch or read about my obsessions, then LinkedIn is the right source. And with Knowdroids, as we are progressing along our internal roadmap and developing our technology, more and more will be written about us and what we do and what we are going to do next on LinkedIn. So that's probably the possibility number one. And I am quite approachable person. So if anyone wants to get in touch over email, over LinkedIn, I'm responding.
It's